thoughts and in my dreams, they're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves and men, and elves, come close your eyes, you can see them too.
I don't think I've told this story to anybody before, and in fact I was just thinking of LARPing, that I remembered the one time I was in a really, really disastrous LARP where I was so desperate to roleplay I got roped into a LARP, and it was a new Vampire the Masquerade, not Vampire the Requiem. What happened was Vampire the Masquerade had an old edition where everything was kind of leading up to an apocalypse. The big thing that was going on is, okay, Vampire the Masquerade in brief. What happens is there's Cain and Abel, and Cain murders his brother Abel, God curses him, and he becomes the first vampire. So everything is leading up to Judgment Day, essentially. And in this case, Judgment Day is called Gehenna, when Cain finally wakes up or crawls out of whatever hole he climbed into, and essentially destroys the world. You know, him and his antediluvians, the original vampires he create, will wake up from their slumber, go mad, and devour everything. And so everything in terms of the plot of Vampire is kind of centered around this concept of Gehenna coming. The end of the world is coming. These immortal creatures who fear nothing but time are running out of time. I really liked it. In fact, a lot of people who played it really liked it. I hate the New World of Darkness. I hate it bad. So, because it kind of takes out that whole meta plot. There's really nothing to the meta plot now. There's no upcoming apocalypse. I just don't find it as interesting. I know a lot of people are going to get on me. Here's my main problem with the new Vampire the Requiem, the New World of Darkness. And this is going to sound really stupid to people who are hardcore vampire gamers. I know this, but this is just the kind of role player that I am. There's no good guys. There's no good guys in Vampire. And I know already I can tell some of you are laughing, because a lot of you play evil as fuck vampires. You play guys who are predators. You play guys who are, you know, reveling in the night and drinking blood, you know, gorging on the flesh of the living and stuff like that, who make really dark as fuck characters. And they go, of course there's no good guys. We're vampires. We're bad guys. I almost never play a bad guy in an RPG. I always think RPG should be about protagonists, about heroes. The problem with Vampire the Requiem is that everybody is utterly bugfuck evil. And I don't like playing characters like that. In fact, I don't think it's the way Vampire was intended to be played. Because, and here's the thing, Vampire has always been about humanity. That's your moral code. Almost all the time is humanity. Unless you play kind of a variant character, and that, in fact, a lot of people love to do that. I call it path whoring. Almost every vampire follows the path of humanity, except for the monstrous ones. Almost every other character follows kind of a monstrous path where they kind of revel in being monsters, or, you know, they kind of revel in being that Lestat type of vampire who just, you know, I want to be all emo. I want to be this beast who crawls in the darkness and broods and does vampire-y things and kills not because I must, but because that's what I am now, and very lame stuff. But here's the thing. The path of humanity, and this is where I think people fundamentally misunderstand Vampire most of the time. The path of humanity means that you are a good guy. It means that if you're following the path of humanity, that you are trying to hold on to your humanity in the face of becoming a monster. I know I'm lecturing players. I've only played Vampire a few times, and I feel like I'm lecturing players who've played this all their lives on how to play Vampire, and I guess I am. But you really should play a guy who doesn't really want to be a vampire, like deep down, or is trying to hold on to their morality, who only feeds because they must. Like, if you're playing a vampire who is killing people all the time, you're playing it wrong. Especially if you're following Path Humanity. If you're following some kind of like Path of Night or whatever like that, whatever. But, okay, going back to my problem is, there's no good guys, and it's weird because almost every, I forget what it's called, not coterie, almost every covenant in Vampire follows the Path of Humanity, which is ridiculous. Here's what I'm saying. There's the Lankius Sanctum. The Lancashire Sanctum is basically like this really hardcore Catholic group of vampires. They're actually very religious, these vampires. And what they do is they believe that they are cursed by God, or rather blessed by God, to be vampires, because if they are the monsters that God has created, they will serve as an example to humanity to scare them into leading a moral life. You know what I mean? So, if they are monsters, then it will inspire other people to be good. So, their job, they believe, as ordained by God, is to be the most monstrous, murderous beings that they can be, and to convert, forcibly if necessary, as many vampires as necessary to their beliefs. Meaning, they will gladly kill everyone they meet, or gladly kill every human they feed on. They will gladly and remorselessly murder all they like because they believe God wills them to do it. And they can get away with it as long as they go to confessional. If they confess their sins, they don't lose humanity because, oh, they feel so bad about it. It's bullshit. Then there's the Invictus. The Invictus are essentially the Ventrue of the old World of Darkness. They're essentially the vampires who are the power brokers. The guys who use their immortality to, form that kind of underground shadow broker type thing where they amass money, they amass political power, and they're basically evil and corrupt, and they revel in it. They're evil. Then there's the Circle of the Crone, who are essentially devil worshippers, or like witches. They're basically the guys who get naked in the woods, paint themselves in blood, and dance around a fire and act retarded and that kind of thing. They're evil. Then there's the Ordo Dracul. At first glance, the Ordo Dracul is a group of good guys. So what their deal is their powers are basically powers that allow them to be more human. They look more human. They can resist the temptations of blood. They can resist their fear of fire. So all their abilities are essentially powers that allow them to blend in more easily and relate more to humans. And you'd be like, oh, well, that actually seems cool because they want to be more human. They're trying to hold on to their last vestiges of humanity. But that's not true. Because if you look at the deep, dark secrets of the Ordo Dracul, here's what they're really trying to do. They're trying to make daywalkers so they can take over the world. They're evil. The only passably good group are the Carthians. And the way the book presents the Carthians, or at least the way the first book presents the Carthians, I understand they're made a little more serious in later books, but the way the first book presents the Carthians are a little more than a joke. Those kind of really douchebag, those guys who hand out flyers on college campuses, campaigning for Ron Paul or something like that. Those guys who they really do portray these guys as like leaflet handing out hippies. It's actually very depressing because they're the only guys who are portrayed with any kind of moral compass who are trying to overthrow the status quo. So where I'm going with this is the LARP I played in, I was basically a fifth wheel. There was about 30 people in this LARP and I was number 31. I was the new guy. And a friend of mine got me involved in this LARP. So they didn't know me, I didn't know them, and clearly they had nothing planned for me. Or so I thought. So when I get involved in this game, I'm expected to present myself to the Prince of the City. The Prince of the City is the person who runs the city. He's the king vampire of the particular city. So I go to the Prince of Phoenix, and I've played enough tabletop vampire to know the gist of what's going on. I'm not a complete noob. But I go there, and it's called now as soon as I say I'm not a noob, I say, I forget the name of it. It's neutral ground when you go to where the prince is. It's neutral ground. Vampires are not expected to fight each other. They can take it outside, but they're not expected to fight. Oh, man, it's got some kind of fruity name to it, but anyway. So I go there, and every other vampire game I've played, they kind of make sure you don't have any weapons. So I go there and I basically kind of hold my arms up, and the guy at the door goes, "What are you doing?" I go, I'm unarmed. I just want you to know I'm unarmed." And he goes, Oh, okay, go in. So I go in there. I present myself to the prince, and he goes, so what's your name? And I go, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, and what covenant do you belong to? And I go, oh, the Carthians. And the room erupts with laughter. I go, and the prince goes, well, welcome to our city. I'm sure you'll fit right in. And he goes, well, you hereby have safe passage through our territory. Please, as long as you don't cause trouble. Here's the rules. He tells me the rules, and he goes, enjoy yourself while you're here. I go, right on. So I played a Gangrel Carthian. I wanted to play a character that nobody played because I wanted to play kind of a atypical character. That's just me. I like to play kind of non-stereotypical characters. So I played a Gangrel who was not necessarily like a revolutionary, but I wanted to play a character who was nice. I wanted to play a guy who wasn't necessarily going to cause trouble or try to convert people. I just wanted to play a guy who was helpful. I wanted to play a guy who was willing to make friends. You know, kind of get familiar. That's why I made kind of a sociable character, because I wanted to get involved with the group. I wanted to make friends, and so I said I was a Carthian, and they laughed at me. And so I asked the prince. I go, what's so funny? And they laughed at me when I said I was a Carthian. And I go, oh well, we don't have many of those around here. I go, really? He goes, actually, we don't have any. You'd be the first. I go, oh, well, that's no problem. I'm not looking to start anything. I mean, I know we kind of have a reputation, but really I'm just passing through, you know. And I go, you have a lovely city here. Everything looks quite well. And he was like, yes, we like to keep things well in order around here, as you'll soon find out. I go, okay. So, the night passes, and I go outside, and I get pulled aside by several of the group. And they explain to me that as I walk out, I get jumped by 4 of them, and I get attacked. And I'm like, but I'm outside neutral ground. And they go, yeah. I go, and so we do our fight, and I get quickly overwhelmed. And they go, okay, we're going to throw you in the back of this truck, and we're going to take you somewhere. And so they don't actually do that, but they go, this is generally what happens in terms of role playing. They go, well, we're going to take you over here, and you know, whatever. So I'm like, wow, I'm kind of getting, I got my ass kicked, but I'm kind of getting involved. I figure they got something for me here. So I'm like, I'm nervous about this, but I'm kind of excited. So I'm like, wow, they actually kind of got a little adventure for the newbies. You know, I'm kind of into it. I'm like, wow, this is something I'm going to get rescued, or there's going to be an adventure where somebody like the other Carthians or some other group of good guys kind of rescues me, and I'm like, so I'm kind of asking them, and they go, well, we've gagged you, but you can ask us questions, like, you know, we'll talk to you out of character. So I'm like, so how come I got jumped on neutral ground? I thought that was a big no-no. He's like, well, the prince told us to do it. I'm like, the prince told us to. I'm like, yeah, he's Lanky Sanctum. We're all Lanky Sanctum. And I go, oh. So what is this? He goes, you'll find out. So he takes us to the church. They throw me in like the basement of the church, and they go, okay, well, here's the deal. What happens is we basically duct tape you to a chair. Oreo's crying. It's like, we basically duct tape you to a chair, and we ask you, do you believe in God? And I go, I think about it, and I go, my character said, I go, not really. And there was a guy with Auspex or something like that. He goes, he's telling the truth. And he goes, wrong answer. So the guy hits me. Not hits me real, but he says, like, my guy hits you. So I'm like, ow, what the fuck? He goes, I'm afraid I didn't hear you properly because, you know. So I go, what the fuck is this? And he's like, do you believe in God? And I go, well, not now. And so they go, okay, well, if you're going to keep holding out on us like this, basically what's going to happen is we're going to torture you. And you're going to join the Lanky Sanctum whether you want to or not. And I go, what do you mean? well, we have this guy with Dominate, and basically we're going to systematically torture you through pain, and you can either agree to join the Lengthy Sanctum and swear an oath to us, or we'll have this guy dominate you completely and brainwash you, because nobody's coming to help you. There's no other Carthians, and nobody gives a shit. And I go, why? He goes, everyone in this city is Invictus or Lengthy Sanctum. Everybody. And the two guys who are Circle of the Crone, they ain't gonna help you. And I go, great. So they go, and if Dominate doesn't work, if you've got some resistance to that, basically we'll stake you on the roof of the cathedral and let you enjoy the slow, agonizing death of the sunrise. And I go, you know what, guys? You talked me into it. Hail Caesar! And they go, God. They're like, so they kind of, even though I agree, they kind of brainwash me anyway. And so I kind of go through this thing where they indoctrinate me into the church, and they go, we'll be watching you. You're Lengthy Sanctum now. You follow orders, or we'll kill you. So like I go, great. Okay. So already I kind of been shanked. So I get orders to do like horrible things, and I kind of go through one session and I kind of follow through with it. But I'm already kind of sick of this. I go, this is kind of bullshit what they did to me here. So I pull the DM aside, the guy organizing the game, and I go, I feel kind of Shanghaied here. I feel like I kind of got, well, my character got taken over, essentially. Like, I have no free will anymore. And he goes, yeah, well, you brought a Carthian into a Lengthy Sanctum city, and you know how they are. I go, well, I do now. And I go, he goes, afraid there's not much I can do for you. I mean, you can roll up a new character if you want, but I'd suggest rolling up a character that plays nicer with the rest of the group, because they don't like Carthians. They're going to convert you one way or the other unless you've got protection. And I go, what do you mean? I go, well, protection in the means of you should have either made a character who has powerful contacts with the police, or you should have characters who are Invictus, who the Lengthy Sanctum kind of has a truce with the Invictus, and they don't mess with them. So you probably should have talked to me before that and tried to find a way for a character who can kind of last in this city without just immediately being jumped. And I go, well, thanks for letting me know before I wasted all night. He goes, it's cool. Let's think about this. Do you want to make a new character? Because we can do that. And I go, no. Just look over my sheet real fast and make sure everything's cool. He goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I've got these skills, and so what's kind of the rule with crafting? He goes, crafting? I go, yeah. I look at my sheet there. You see all those skills I have? My guy's kind of a handyman, or at least he was kind of a machinist and a chemist before he was basically a scientist before he was embraced as a vampire. And he goes, oh, really? That's kind of cool. You played like a skill focused type guy. And I go, yeah. He's very skill focused because I wanted him to be useful. I didn't want to make him a combat character. I wanted to make a gangrel who was non-combat. He goes, interesting. It's a shame he got kind of railroaded by the Sanctum. I go, yeah, it was, yeah. But he's very skilled, and so I was wondering, like, could my guy create stuff with his skills, like computer programming? Could I make a software program, or if I had like mechanics, could I make a car? And he's like, yeah, if you've got the money, and just clear it with us, and we'll do it. And like chemistry, if I wanted to make just stuff out of chemistry, could I do that? He goes, yeah, cool. Yeah, anything. Just write it down and keep it on a list with you, and it's fine. So I go, I got really pissed. I got more pissed than I should have been at this. I really felt like I got hazed. So I really think it's uncool for players to treat each other like that, to kind of essentially torture and maim another character, because that's the way things go. I really think players should try to work together a little bit, at least in a LARP, and at least try to find some way to welcome new fucking players instead of throwing them in the back of a van, throwing a garbage bag over the head, duct taping to a chair, and torturing me with a blowtorch until I converted to their way of thinking. Not cool. So, I go, cool. So I pull one of these characters aside. I pull another character aside. I was like, I want you to witness this as I do this kind of thing. You'll notice that my character has 4 dots in chemistry. And he goes, yeah. So what do you think of chemistry? That's a weird skill to choose. I go, well, bear with me. I'm going to make bathtub Semtex. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. I go, I want to make bathtub Semtex. And if you look in the book, there's a rule for that. If you want to make scratch-built explosives. Semtex is basically C4. So I go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this skill right in front of you. I want you to witness it. I didn't record. I should have recorded it, but I was like, I want you to witness this. I'm gonna. In fact, LARPing doesn't involve rolls; it involves Rochambeau. But I was like, I'm gonna roll this the way it would be. So if it blows up in my face, you'll just write off my character as being dead. So I'm gonna have like a bathtub full of Semtex. So I'm like, well, my guy's got 4 dots in chemistry, and I specialized in home-built explosives. The DM looked at it, approved it. So I go, okay, I roll it up. So I make a bathtub full of fucking Semtex. So, I go back to the sanctum. I go back to the what is it called? Damn it! I go back to the neutral ground. I go back to the prince the next week, and I kind of stand outside the room because everyone kind of mills around in the court of the prince and just kind of talks and politics, and that's where they kind of explain what's going on in the city, and everyone kind of gives orders, and then afterwards we all go to Denny's. So, I kind of watch people go in, and there's a guy watching the door, but he's just kind of there, he's literally just watching the door. And like I said, almost every other vampire game I've ever played, you get patted down. Like, they make sure you don't have any weapons, and there's a lot of guards everywhere. So I'm watching the first 5 or 6 people go in, he just waves them in. And in fact, I go towards there, and he waves me in, and I go, oh shit, you know what, I forgot something in my car. So I go back, and I put notes all over my body. So, like, in Vampire LARPs, what you do is if your character has a gun, you actually cannot carry a gun, because you'll get arrested. What they literally do is you write gun on a 3x5 index card, and if you're brandishing a gun at somebody, you whip out the index card, and you're like, this is a gun, or this is a shotgun, or this is a sword. So you don't actually have people who are armed at Vampire LARPs. It looks really ridiculous, but it's safer that way. So what I do is I take a deck of index cards, and I write Semtex on like 30 of them, and I tape them to my body. So I'm wearing a jacket, and I wear a jacket, and I have like 30 index cards with Semtex written on it. And so I go inside. The guy just waves me in, and I go in there, and I'm looking around, and there's a new player. And I walk up to the guy and I go, hey, welcome. Praise be to God and all that. I'm playing the Langsty Sanctum thing up at the hill. I go, praise be. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, I go, oh, you're new, aren't you? And he goes, yeah. Have you spoken to the prince yet? No. What covenant are you? And he says something like, I think he goes, it wasn't Invictus, it was something else. It was not status quo. And I go, oh, well, we'll be seeing you real soon. By the way, you should probably talk to the prince now. And then you should probably go home. He goes, what do you mean? I go, just do it. He doesn't like to be kept waiting. So the prince is kind of going around and talking to people, and this new guy approaches, and there's this guy who always has kind of auspex on. The auspex guy he's kind of doing this thing where he's looking at the newbie, and so I make sure before I enter the room he's looking at the newbie, just so there's no argument here. And so I go into the bathroom, and I drop this big stack of cards. I start ripping the stacks of cards off my body, and I stack right on the toilet, which is ironically enough like right next to the prince's room. There's like this, so I drop this stack of Semtex cards. And I leave it on the toilet. And then I come back out, I leave the room, and I hand the doorman a stack of 5 cards. And he goes, what's this? I go, when I get to my car, turn the stack over, and you'll see. And so I get in my car, and I sit down, cross my legs, and he flips over. He actually follows like, okay. So I hold up a card that says detonator, and he can't see it, but I hold up this little card that says detonator, and he turns the stack over, and it goes 4, 3. It was straight out of Last Action Hero. There's 4, 3, 2, 1, and then on the last card I write, I have placed 30. I have placed like 5 pounds of Semtex in the bathroom. And I've placed 5 pounds of index cards that say Semtex in the bathroom. I made it with my chemistry skill. As you read this, I have detonated the entire stack of Semtex, which should be more than enough to level the entire city block. Everyone inside the building is more than likely dead by now. The guy looks at this, looks at me. He goes to the guy running the adventure. The guy looks at me, and he goes to the car. He comes to me, and he goes, "What is this?" And I go, "What did you expect me to do?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "You stood by, like, you basically, you let my character get abducted, taken to a basement, tortured with a blowtorch until I was forcibly converted. I lied. I wasn't really converted. They didn't dominate me. I pretty much agreed immediately under threat of death. So what I did was I went to my home, you cleared my character, I covered my body in Semtex explosives, dropped it off in the bathroom, I went to my car and I blew it up. Everyone's dead." And he goes, "You can't do that." I go, "Just did it." He goes, You can't do that." I go, "I just did it." He goes, but I'm like, but what? It's not fair? It's not cool when some asshole ruins your entire game and kills off your character without even clearing it with you? He goes, that's not what we meant to do. I'm like, "That's not what we meant to do. You fucked up my character. You know, like, if you want to play hardball, I just played hardball with your ass." He's like, "This really isn't appropriate." I go, "I know, isn't it?" He's like, "You're being a real asshole about this." I go, "I know, aren't I?" He's like, "I'm not clearing this. This is bullshit." I go, "Well, I knew he wasn't going to, like, who would do that?" He's like, "I know you won't, but I just want you to know I outsmarted basically everyone in this entire city, and I basically freed the entire city from the tyrannical grip of the Lancia Sanctum and the Invictus in one fell swoop. Victory for the Carthians, bitch." And he goes, "You should probably go." I go, "I know." So I leave. That's my big story about how I acted like a complete asshole at the vampire LARP, and how I basically outsmarted a group of 30 people who thought they really put one over on me. Have fun!